during the pandemic itself, I knew that I could find resources in order to get better and get well. And then I was thinking, how do other people manage this? Because many of the patients that come into our service, they've waited years. They've banged on many doors to try and get to see a sleep physician. And I know there's so much undiagnosed sleep disorders in the population. So I was like, okay, I know what to do. I know where to get help. But what about others?
So welcome to the Power Shift. We are live in person today in the studio. Lots of tech stuff, but hey, we're doing this and really excited to really focus on an area that doesn't get covered that much, but affects every single one of us. Yep. It's sleep, right? And as you know, I talk about this all the time. We have a great coaching and mentoring journey pathway program for doctors who are really elevating themselves as leaders, entrepreneurs, change makers in industry, and many of them trailblazers and pioneers in their niche. And so it's a real pleasure to introduce Dr. Desaline Joseph, who is the sleep tech doctor. So she is the only one who is in industry consulting with a whole range of big brand sleep tech and wearables companies. So welcome.
Thank you.
How are you doing? And it's so great to be on this couch with you finally.
Great. I know. I'm so privileged. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
No, absolutely. And we did not deliberately color coordinate ourselves and with the couch. That was not deliberate. It's just how it's happened. So brilliant. So let's get started. So let's just talk about sleep. Number one, because not many doctors realize that sleep medicine is a thing, because there's only 5 of you in the country. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So literally 4 of us work at my hospital in my trust and 1 further south, and I travel 100-mile commute to get to my workplace.
Wow. Okay.
In order to practice.
Okay. And so you are a paediatrician.
Yeah.
How the hell did you get into sleep? Because at the end of the day, we think sleep may be related to anaesthetists, most traditionally.
Yeah. Or respiratory medicine.
Yeah. So So how did you end up in that space?
So there are quite a few of us who actually ended up in this space by accident and not on purpose.
Right.
So when I was at medical school, where I studied, they let anyone who was walking and talking and had gotten into the program, you could do an intercalated BSc. Mm-hmm. So I already knew that I wanted to work with children, babies, young people within medicine. Mm-hmm. So I was choosing my project, and there was a project that was going to look at babies and how they learned to sleep in their homes. Mm-hmm. So it was the baby bit that got me. It wasn't, and it was on a housing estate, one of the poorest housing estates in the country. Wow. And I got to work with some families who were really struggling, who were in witness protection because they'd viewed a murder, or who were constantly being burgled by their own relatives. It was real rough. But at that time, I was learning how our body assembles the body clock. So cool. And how babies learn to sleep through the night. So I did that, and then I kind of forgot about it. I had fun. I got on with my studies, graduated from medical school, got my paediatric qualifications. And my supervisor kept following me around. He's from Guyana, he's from the Caribbean as well. He was like, I want you to come back and do a doctorate with me. I was like, okay, calm down, calm. But eventually I said, okay, I went back, and then I studied in more detail how do we learn how to sleep, but this time looking at the genetics of it. And at medical school, I was like, genetics, blah. But, in my dissertation, I was able to really get down to the nub of it. Mm-hmm. So after that, I trained in neurodisability medicine, went to a conference, heard this guy speaking, and he said he's a sleep doctor. And I was like, you're what? Mm-hmm. Like, who are you and what do you do? And then I basically started following him around. And I used to come on my days off from where I live down into London, sat in the lab, learned how to score sleep studies, followed physiologists around. and then trained myself. So I dual trained myself so that I could become a sleep physician.
I mean, I think that's incredible because, I mean, similar to me, where, I mean, like, obviously there's a lot more occupational health physicians now, I should say, because I've been talking about it for the last 10, 11 years. But I think it's really interesting that, you know, you had that early exposure, didn't think much about it, but then ended up like really like carving out your own career in sleep. But you didn't stop there,
Nope.
right? So as you know, as you said, like there's about five of you in the country.
Yes.
And well, four of the five actually work together.
Yeah.
But you are the only one who is really building a powerful, influential career in industry. So obviously there's a lot of sleep tech in industry, but not many physicians working in that space necessarily.
Sure.
So how did you even come to the idea that actually you can influence, you can work with these companies and actually do something really meaningful at scale? What really motivated you to do that?
So part of it, there's a professional part and then there's a personal part. So from a professional point of view, I had the privilege of leading our team when we came out of the pandemic. Long waiting lists, a lot of stress. Many teams were nearly decimated because of people leaving, people were moving, there was brain drain. And so for about a 3-year period, I was working in a high leadership role under a lot of stress, and able to work on solutions to see there's a third way for something to be done and to move beyond just the patient straight in front of me, but looking at scale about how we're delivering a tertiary quaternary service. As again, our service is one of only 4 in the UK that work at the level that we do. So once I'd put that aside, I was thinking what's next, and I'm a trustee for a charity, and I was thinking, is there something else I can do? And some of the skills that I've gained in terms of governance and working in a board role as a non-exec director, I thought maybe there's something else that I can apply it to. And then I came across Medic Footprints, and that bit just goes down in history. And then from a personal point of view, I'd studied the science of sleep. That's what my doctorate is in. I was then working at a very high level in a clinical setting where we're offering sleep solutions clinically for children and young people around the whole of the United Kingdom. But then again, I'm going to go back to the pandemic, because there's like before the pandemic and after. During the pandemic itself, my twin sister, her 14-year-old daughter, died suddenly and unexpectedly. And so I got insomnia. So I was like, whoa, what's going on? So the first thing was I knew what was going on, because there are like 70 different sleep disorders, and most of us as medics don't know that fact. And so if someone presents to us with a sleep problem, a lot of the time we don't have a foggy clue. We throw some medicine, here's some melatonin, here's a Z drug, and we think it's going to sort it. But so during the pandemic itself, I knew that I could find resources in order to get better and get well. And then I was thinking, how do other people manage this? Because many of the patients that come into our service, they've waited years, they've banged on many doors to try and get to see a sleep physician. And I know there's so much undiagnosed sleep disorders in the population. So I was like, okay, I know what to do. I know where to get help, but what about others? And then wearables, AI, especially in the past 12 months, have just been like growing in their popularity. And before, I was very skeptical. I was like many physicians and sleep physiologists who were like, that hypnogram thing that you're drawing, that's a load of, no, we're not into that. But then I started to think, is there a way actually to harness what a member of the public most can get their hands on that's related to sleep, but then translate it into something that is real, actionable, that's going to make a difference? So that's when I started my journey.
Brilliant. So, I mean, I have to say, like, it's, you know, that just hearing about, you know, how this journey started with a tragic loss in your family.
Yeah.
And then something happened to you as a result. And, you know, a lot of these stories do really start from those personal, really difficult and challenging moments that get you to really rethink your life, what you're doing, and also like how can you help more people at scale, because obviously we are limited as doctors doing it on a one-to-one basis, and how many can actually get fit into a clinic in a day kind of thing. And there are huge opportunities there, like the market is open for play.
Absolutely.
But there aren't any real solid pathways for doctors who do have that interest to actually go and get it. So, I mean, you mentioned that Medic Footprints goes down in history.
It does.
So, tell me, like, what does that mean for you? Like, what does that actually look like? Like, what? And I mean, we're talking about, you know, how you. I mean, obviously, you know, doctors that come on our program, they have to have a certain mindset to actually really move forward in their career. One, they need to be able to see the potential and the opportunity. Two, they need to actually have a growth and action oriented mindset.
Yeah.
And three, they actually have to believe that they can do it. So what actually brought you into the conversation we had on Christmas Eve last year, and what has changed before and after for you to be where you are now?
So I'm going to rewind slightly and go back into when I was leading our service. And so I'm now having regular meetings with clinical director, deputy clinical director, CEO. And when you're kind of problem solving and thinking about next steps, there were certain themes that were coming through. People were mentioning things, coaching, mentorship. These terms get thrown around a lot. But I think when your back is to the wall and you're having to make very high level decisions, you can see the only way my leaders ahead of me are able to do this is because they are getting coached and they are in communities and they are getting very high level mentorship. And so by accessing that through my head of service role, then when I started to think about, you know, how can I make global impact, especially within the tech space, something that had an element of coaching in it, something that had an element of community, something that had an element of mindset and looking at myself first and to see what needs to shift in me. Because, you know, as doctors, we're like, get the exam, pass the exam, get into the specialty, apply for the job, fill in the form, and you're okay. And then you learn that when you step away from that slightly, it's a very different world. It's not really how it works. And we know there are statistics, 85% of people, jobs are not advertised, and or, you know, 80% of people, they'll get the job because of their network and connection, not because of something else. But that is much more so if you're in a space adjacent to healthcare and outside of the NHS. And so for me, Medic Footprints was like, how can I compress time? How can I get to a goal quickly but effectively and efficiently? And I think the program and becoming a Doctors in Industry Fellowship just ticked all the boxes for me.
Tell me more about compressing time here, because I think that's something that a lot of doctors really underestimate, because we spend a lot of time in all of the things that you just said.
Exactly.
So, you know, 5 years in med school, and then however many years of training post-grad, 10, 20 years non-stop kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're conditioned to believe that time equals better, equals more money, equals more prestige.
Yes.
Right. And it has to be a long period of time to get there. But we know, and I've seen it countless times, for example, like one of our other fellows, psychiatrist, written off with COVID, got long COVID, you know, had worked in the NHS for a very long time, and said, I need to replace my income, and obviously, you know, ill health retirement. And within a year, they replaced their income, their NHS, within a year. And again, with long COVID. So it had to be something online. It had to be something, you business related. It had to be something flexible, but putting their mind to it, they did it in a year. So this is like, we're all working towards the, income level, but it takes so long. So what is the return? So just going back to what you said, why was compressing time important for you?
I think
because a lot of doctors will be like, well, I'll do it later, or I'll wait till I finish this, or I'll wait until I'm dead.
It feels like
I'll wait until I'm dead, and then I'll, But I'd love to hear from you.
I think it comes back to if someone is starting to think, is there something else I can do alongside my clinical work or instead of? Because it could be either. It's important to go back to your values, your motivators, and what's driving you. So for me, family is important. Flexibility is important, especially as my family's gone through a lot of sacrifice for me to be able to. Nothing that I've done would have been possible without the support of my parents, my sisters, my daughter, my husband. So those things are important to me and drive me. So and then I guess because of my niece's sudden death, she was only 14. It was like tomorrow is not promised. Like this is like there was absolutely zero consideration in our family that we would have a child death. I mean, I'm a paediatrician. My doctorate was about cot death. I've trained as a SUDEC paediatrician, which is a sudden unexpected death in childhood.
Gosh.
Doctor. I've done investigations with detective inspectors, going into family homes in order to work out what happened when a baby or child has died unexpectedly. That's part of my professional role.
That's been
and
awful
being
to have gone through that yourself.
Being on the other side of it, and especially during the pandemic, it was just mind-blowing.
Gosh.
And I think like we know athletes, they all have coaches. There's no Olympic medal winning athlete who doesn't have a coach. It's just not possible. And so if you as a doctor, whoever's listening, if you speak to the CEO of your hospital, speak to the chair of your board, speak to your clinical director, they're getting coached. And coaching is just giving you skills so that you can be very efficient at what you do. And then do it quickly, not to break it and do it quickly because you're doing it badly, but to do it very well. And so for me, now coaching is not a nice to have. It's this is critical, important to keep me well, safe, but to also allow me to enjoy what I do with passion and open up opportunities and doors. And then the network comes with it as well in Medic Footprints, and you can hardly put a value on it because your network is your value.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to move along because there was so much gold in there, and it's like, where can I actually because there's so much of that I want to freeze and then like really dig deeper in, but just for the purposes of, because I want to hear more about your experience, but let's actually start with the network element. So before coming on to the doctoral industry, what was your network like in order to actually get into open doors in industry compared to how did the program help you actually open those doors? Because, I mean, Desaline is incredible in the sense that within 6 weeks, she'd already closed her first health tech contract. 6 weeks, right? Incredible. And she was speaking to companies across the world, like really big brand globally. You would know if I said, but we're not going to say, but really big companies across the pond and in like record time. So what changed really for you? Like, I'd love to hear a little bit more.
So if somebody joins Medic Footprints and becomes a fellow, there is a roadmap to follow. And I'm a scientist. Give me methodology. I'm not a cook, so it's not a recipe for me. I'm going to follow it. And my network prior would have been very clinical, academic, because that's what I'd done. I'm a senior lecturer. I'm a clinician. And some people may be doing things in the background and not talking about it much, so you just don't know what they're doing. And I would say that joining the fellowship was like unlocking a treasure trove. So first of all, you have the other fellows who are on the journey with you, and they know people. And then you have former fellows who are now in leading roles in industry, so they immediately become a part of your network. And then yourself as CEO and founder, you personally are very connected, and you're very generous with your spirit, with how you share with us as those working on your program. So we automatically get connected to your network again. And then you frame it very skillfully. Look in your phone book, look in your address book, and just think, is there anyone that I know who may know somebody else? Let me just ask the question. And that's one of the very first exercises we do in the fellowship. And suddenly all these gems spring out of nowhere, and you're like, wow, and you just follow where the leads go. And then community is just like crucial. So if someone's studying medicine, it's very unlikely you're going to be sat in a room remotely, just online med school. Like, it doesn't work like that. You need to have your experience of going through and learning things, but then you've got your mates, you've got whoever to connect. That's how we survived our junior doctor.
Absolutely.
jobs.
It was the other doctors that we work with.
Exactly.
And I think we underestimate that as well, isn't
100%.
it? Because they have gradually taken away the spaces that we used to convene, like the doctor's message and all of that stuff.
Yes.
And then, we're increasingly isolated, especially in like more of an online driven world.
Sure.
And people moving around hospitals very frequently.
Yes.
And that's how it happens. So it's, as you said, like bringing in that community is a really important part of that, because it brings that right back.
So we do things online as fellows, we do things face to face, and then we just get to learn, where are people, what are the key conferences, how do I use those opportunities and leverage them. I think leveraging is really important, because you can go to a conference, you can sit in the back, you can eat your sandwich, you can be doing your clinical work while you're half listening to the lecture, or you can go to the conference and say, I'm going to get the phone number of blah 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 whoever, or I'm going to make sure I have a really meaningful conversation with XYZ.
Let's talk about leverage really quickly. What is it? What is leverage?
So the picture, if I put it into ChatGPT and said create me an image, it would have something which you can use to position on a fulcrum, and then you use it to pivot. So something which is exceptionally heavy then becomes light, so you're able to get that weight up. And for me, leveraging within industry is about positioning yourself, having a mindset first, being clear, having clarity about what you do and what you want to offer, and then talking about it a lot. Yeah. And then moving in certain circles where you're able to say, I add value this way, that way. That's what I think.
Yeah. And like my simpler way, I'm a simple person, really. My simpler way of seeing leverage is you have something, right? Yes. So for example, I've got a phone, right? I've got a phone right here in my hand, and that's all I have. Right. And as you just you mentioned, one of the first things we recommend every doctor does is like, don't worry about going on LinkedIn and posting. Yeah. Go and check how many people you've got on your WhatsApp that you've spoken to in the last, say, like few days, and message them and say, this is what I'm doing. Who do you know? Right. That is leverage, because it's like what you already have. Yeah. How can you use that to get to your next point? Another way of leveraging is, for example, you are here sat on this couch sharing your experience, and in doing so, amplifying your message and being able to connect with others using our audience, using our credibility, do you know what I mean? It's like, some people are like, oh, I don't want to use anyone, but like that's how you get along. that is life. And we talk about leveraging our credentials, for example. medicine, with a medical degree, if you get a medical degree and you do nothing with it, nothing's going to happen, right? You have to actually apply for jobs, then start working. Then, that's leverage. And that's why we say, for example, with an MBA, a lot of doctors will go and do that. But it's a very expensive way to get into industry if that's the reason why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And so we look at what is the return on investment? Because not only that you're spending a lot longer in another qualification, but also the price. And it's just be very clear what your return on investment is. Do you need 2-3 years in an MBA to then get a job? Or could you get a job in the next 90 days and be earning quicker, right? Because you can. And a lot of doctors think they can't. And so this is what we call leverage. It's how can you get to the next point in your journey quickly using what you have now, rather than having to getting the next thing first. So just to round off, your experience speaking to global tech leaders,
yes,
right? Getting in the doors, knocking on the doors, being really persistent. What advice and insights would you give doctors who are I can't possibly do that. She's doing it, but that's really not me. I can't imagine myself being in that point right now. Or anything that you think, people completely underestimate or overestimate, who they are and how they influence.
I think so. I'm just chuckling, laughing to myself, because it's something. I'm going to bring it back to something that you say. What you tell us as fellows is, you are a doctor. You can do it. You don't need to be or do anything extra or additional. And I think people are fascinated about our clinical work and what we do, but they also see the value in having us in the room, in those spaces when decisions are being made about product development, or how is this digital solution, for example, AI, going to be used in a clinical pathway. It can cost the company hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds by not having a clinician involved early enough. And I'm hearing this time and time again, either where things have gone wrong, unfortunately, in terms of a patient pathway, but even in the wellness space as well, more things, especially with wearables, are moving from wellness into healthcare. And so you wouldn't fly a plane without a pilot. And so if somebody needs to be well, because wellness is about preventative medicine, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're looking at healthcare itself, you need a doctor in the room. So what I would say is, you can learn how to upskill. And when I say upskill, I don't mean get loads more degrees or whatever it is. You can upskill by knowing who you are, what you want to do, being clear on your values, and then just using that as a catalyst to just skyrocket you through to what your goal is. And we get wins every week from our fellows, just smashing it, just doing things that prior to coming to the fellowship they wouldn't have even have dreamed of being able to do it, and it's happening. And it's great. It's just so exciting. There's such a buzz.
There is. No, I mean, no, honestly, I think that's the great thing, that we celebrate wins every week. The small wins, the big wins, they're equally as important, because we find that doctors in particular, they're not very good at celebrating the wins. They gloss over it. Because usually what would happen, say, in a session, we'd be talking to one of the fellows, and then I'd be like, so, what happened? Have you launched your business? What's happening with your clients? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I've got 3-4 clients. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. You did not mention that. And they're like, the question that you asked was about partnerships with all the, it's just kind of a last minute, under the radar, not really important. Yeah. Oh my God, this is a big win for you, right? They're like, yeah, but didn't want to, the whole humble, there's just no space for that in industry. There is no space for that anymore. Right? It's really about taking the moment and celebrating what you've achieved, because this road is hard enough, right? The road in life is generally hard. So it really is that mindset shift. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us on this couch. I'm sure we will see more of Desaline. I mean, she's literally been stalking me here at her house. I have to say, so I'm going to be here 3 days a week now. Great, Desaline, great. Her daughter's been here as well. Bring the family. But I this is what I love, though. This is what I love, and like what really warms my heart is to connect you with my network and see you building your own network, because it grows our ecosystem.
Absolutely,
that's the key. So thank you. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way of doing that?
So if you just look me up on LinkedIn, Desaline Joseph, I'm the sleep health tech doctor. It's been my pleasure.
Brilliant. Thank you.